You have 1 minute remaining.
Let me start by saying that normally this podcast is done with co-hosts, both me and Illy Askia. Last month for Mother's Day, Illy kicked me off the podcast and went solo. So this is my time to get a little retribution. Today, it's just the fellas. Illy is sitting this one out as we are having a conversation in anticipation of Father's Day, which is right around the corner. This podcast is actually being recorded on my birthday. And I have to say, I made a commitment to not work on my birthday. And fortunately, this isn't work. This is a real gift for me. I've been so looking forward to having this conversation with the two of you for very different reasons. And let me start by saying why. Starting with you, David. I mean, David Singleton, this is your second time on our podcast. You've been someone who I have really admired and been inspired by for a long time. And I've been fortunate in my career to be surrounded by people who have inspired me. David, you've been a public defender. We met as public defenders in Washington, D.C. After you did a stint as a public defender in Harlem at the Neighborhood Defender Services. You're now the executive director of the Ohio Justice and Policy Center. You are a law professor at the Northern Kentucky University's Salmon P. Chase College of Law. And I got to say, David, as I said, I surround myself by people I admire. Now, as a father, I also realize it's an opportunity to raise people that I admire. I have two kids who inspire me every day. And I know you have a daughter who is amazing, just graduated from Brown University, off to do a Fulbright and ultimately pursue a legal career. So kudos to you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all you do. And the last thing I want to say, David, about you is I think of all the things that I admire about you, maybe what I admire most is the work you've done to create the Beyond Guilt project. And we'll talk more about that, but it really is, as I understand it, a response to the Innocence Project, which says, of course, we should be working to get wrongfully convicted people out of prison, but wrongful conviction can't be limited just to people who are factually innocent. It also has to include people who may have made mistakes, but who have been over-prosecuted, over-punished, who have not been given a chance to redeem themselves and get on with their lives. And through that work, you've done some, you've given people hope. One of the people you've given hope is a childhood friend of mine, Mark Russell, who is serving a sentence in Ohio. And I know you are working to help get him out. And a second person you're helping to give hope to is our second guest, Jerome Nunn, known to his friends and family as Rome. Jerome, I've been knowing about you for over a decade because your sister and I have been close friends. She, Serena Nunn, has had her own ordeal with the criminal legal system. I met Serena after her 16-year sentence was commuted by President Clinton after she served 11 years. In 2016, she was fully pardoned by President Obama. She's become a public defender. She's a graduate of Gideon's Promise. She introduced me to your amazing mother, Shirley Billingsley, who was one of our guests last month. And Rome, I want to just tell you, I think the day I met Serena, she started telling me about you. And I know Serena's always felt like she really will never be free until you get home. And she made it her mission upon release to help make sure you get home. And I know she's connected you to David, and the two of you are working on getting home, getting you home. You're the father of 4 beautiful children. I understand you have 3 grandchildren. And I'm really excited to talk to you about what it means to be a father while being incarcerated, and how you raise your children and inspire your children from the really difficult position you're in. Rome, I'm just so happy to have you on the show. So welcome, and thanks for making the call in. I know it's been difficult getting connected from the prison. We may lose you We will have patience to get you reconnected. And I'm just excited to have both of you on the show. David, Jerome, welcome.
Thank you. And happy birthday to you, Rap.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy birthday to you.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. So I want to jump right into this. And David, I want to start with you and just ask you this question. You, as I said, you started your career as a public defender. I think in your mind, you continue to be a public defender. Certainly in my mind, you are. How did your time as a public defender help shape your career and your work?
My time as a public defender taught me one principle which I carry with me throughout every single thing I do at OJPC and beyond. And that is, we never write anyone off. That is the motto that I personally live by. It's the motto that drives the work that we do at the Ohio Justice and Policy Center. It's why we represent incarcerated people who've got no place else to turn, where they need help with civil rights issues behind bars. It's the value that tells us that we've got to work to free people who are overpunished through beyond guilt. And so it is what I got taught as a public defender, which drives me to this day. It's that simple.
Man, that's great. Thank you, David. And Jerome, I want to also turn it to you because you have you've been incarcerated now for, I believe, 27 years and have really done some incredible things while incarcerated. You've got 3 college degrees. You're an ordained minister. You've created a curriculum for a restorative justice program that is now used in every state prison in Minnesota. And I want to just ask you, how have you found the strength to do all that work while incarcerated, Jerome?
I would say, no, there had to be purpose, and there had to be direction in this space, because it was a place of hopelessness. So, I think my first point of reference was I had to be prayerful about it, right? Because I needed to understand how to navigate space like this that is so dark, as a father or as a man or as a human being. So I had to start first just prayerfully. Secondly, I think I would say I had to be proactively. I had to find out what was available for me, what would help me, and who would help me in this process to get to accomplishing some goal that will bring me some form of fulfillment or help me be something beyond what I had to face. And so I think thoughts that came from there was I had to collaborate with folks, because there's no way that one can navigate through this alone and make it, no capacity. So to do that, finding those directions or taking those routes just helped tremendously. Helped me get to the next stages and phases of what else I may have needed to get over these humps or to deal with what I was facing.
So David, if you could just share with us very quickly the status of Jerome's situation.
Well, June 27th is going to be a big day. We will have Jerome's clemency hearing. We're going to be asking for a commutation to time served. And what makes his case extraordinary is that not only does he have the support of the elected prosecutor for Hennepin County, Minnesota, that's Mike Freeman, who, by the way, met Jerome and got to see his humanity. And that's one of the reasons the prosecutor, has joined us in this fight. But Jerome also has the support of the mother of the man he killed. That mother's name is Danielle Jones, and the victim in the case, Abdul Poe, is who died. And Miss Jones is supporting Jerome's release, believes that he is worthy of coming home. They have known each other since the early 2000s, and she has forgiven Jerome, and she has developed a spiritual bond with him, and considers him, Jerome, to be her spiritual son. And so we've got these two powerful forces coming together to say, Board of Pardons, send Jerome Nunn home to the community. So keep your fingers crossed, and hopefully we will have Jerome back home in the community with his family at the end of June.
I wanted to add about what David said concerning the commutation that's coming up on the 27th. He spoke about Danielle Jones, and she's the mother of my victim. One thing that I would like just to say about her is that she is a phenomenal woman. She's a different spirit, and I believe that this nation just needs to see something that's in her to help bring us back to a place that's a part of the human experience. She has extended her love, and she has extended her forgiveness, and she has extended her mercy to me. And her request to the county attorney's office to show and to request that some mercy be shown to me, phenomenal. And I am grateful that she has done, and they have heard her request and followed through with it. Extraordinary. I'm grateful for it, and I believe what she told them she's seen in me, they came to see for theirself, and they support her 100%. Grateful for that. And the also part that I want to just add to this is that I hope that the board sees this as well. Because what she's bringing us back to is that we all want and we all experience at times in our relationships with each other. Mercy, that's forgiveness. No matter what we've done, we ask for it. It doesn't excuse our behavior, but it's and she has extended that. I'm just grateful for her. I'm here, I believe, because of her. And I just hope others will see she wants heart and love of her for me, that I be granted she requests on that day.
Yeah, again, I just want to commend you and tell you how grateful I am that you are joining us, because you've done more with your life behind bars than so many people who are not incarcerated have done. But I also know that one of the greatest accomplishments, if not the greatest accomplishment of yours, is being a father. And it is really hard being a good parent under any circumstances, but certainly under your circumstances. I mean, there are challenges that I think our listeners can't even imagine. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you've navigated fatherhood while incarcerated, and the challenges that the state has put in your way, oftentimes unnecessarily, in being the father that your children need and the grandparent that your grandchildren need. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Like I said, navigate through this, those elements. I needed wisdom. I needed others to understand how I was going to be able to be a father. sometimes when I haven't really seen what that looks like, right?
Mm.
And also, how can I be there when I'm not there? Or, you know, filter through some of the things that wasn't done right and they were done wrong. So how do I do things that are done wrong? I do right what that I seen that was done wrong. And so just to kind of filter through that, because
You have 1 minute remaining.
there's really no manual on how to be a father, ours or just a father, period, right? But we
Yeah. So Jerome, before you got cut off, and let me just say, I really think that what just happened is almost a perfect metaphor for this criminal legal system that we work in and that you unfortunately live in, where someone can be explaining so passionately what it means to try to be a father, to try to be a human being under such degrading circumstances. And a mechanical voice chimes in and says, you have 1 minute left, right? This mechanical, uncaring, callous system that has no regard for the human being, the father, the caring person who is just trying to make sure that they are heard. Just a perfect metaphor. And so I would just ask if you could maybe pick up where you were before you got cut off and share how do you navigate this system, trying to be the father that your children need and the grandfather that your grandchildren need? How do you do that, Jerome?
you absolutely are correct about the limitations that is put on the value of a father in a home, and in a family. I would say even a mother too, right? That's incarcerated as well. But as a father, for sure, it's it's one of the most painful topics that a man incarcerated or woman goes through, who are parents, to try to keep this relationship and this connection with their child or children. It is, I mean, it's undescribable how one feels with these limitations, because there's really no value placed on the importance of a father having relationship with their children or their human children that will navigate in this world. And so, again, I'm on my knees continually because I need a strength to be able to face this intentional separation that is it a part of the extended punishment that is intentional to separate and break down these family structures that is so necessary to human life, to the growth of human life, to the parent that's in, and as well to the child. So I just have to prayerfully, gather strength. I have to collectively use my community, and I have to be able to find ways to maximize all opportunity that I have. And so the main motto is to find a way, to never give up, and to be able to find that thing that will help me overcome the painful process that we are in together, and not just be depressed, not be riddled with guilt, and all other facets that can come with that, because the lack of support in this area is intentional. It could be more. We could lend more introspection and perspective to it. I think we've been locking people up for hundreds of years. There is a definitely attention needed to look at these areas when a person is still paying the wage, for breaking the law or something, but we absolutely can pay more attention to this, put more attention to it, put more resources into it, if we believe that it has that much of an impact on the human life that's in this world growing up. And if the children are our future, then we need to put more things to that and connect them to the things that are dear to their heart, and that's their parents. So that is a perspective that I believe you're accurate on, and it's many facets of things that I need to be able to navigate that. One is prayer, again, my community and those who share this understanding that this is an important, valuable topic and a place that we always need to have attention to.
No, it's such a powerful answer, and I thank you for those words and for sharing those words with our audience that otherwise might not have a chance to hear from someone in your position. I also really appreciate you bringing up mothers. Again, Shirley Billingsley was our guest last month, along with Jacinta Hall, and they talked about mothers and the importance of mothers in helping people through this system. This month, we're devoted to fathers, and I'm grateful for you sharing the perspective of a father. And David, that brings me to you, because I know as a father who does criminal justice work, I always say probably the most important, or one of the most important things I ever did as a father was building Gideon's promise, that was really something that was critical to my raising children. And I know that your work with the Ohio Justice and Policy Center has gone a long way towards helping address the problem of mass incarceration. I'm also sure that it is foundational to how you see your role as a father. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the Ohio Justice Policy Center, the work you do to end mass incarceration, but also how it connects to who you are as a person and as a father.
OJPC has been around for 25 years now, and what we do are three real major things we do. We work through our Human Rights in Prison project to make sure that people who are behind bars are treated with the humanity that they deserve. We represent folks who have been denied the health care that they need for serious medical issues. Perhaps they've been physically or sexually abused by staff or other incarcerated people, while the staff of the prison just sort of turns a blind eye. We make sure that people are able to practice their faith behind bars. And we do that by bringing lawsuits. And we have to bring more of these lawsuits because we have a system of mass incarceration that just jams people into overcrowded prisons, which make conditions horrible, which means people are being treated less than the human beings that they are. So human rights in prison is the first focus area. We have a project called the Second Chance Project, and really it's a misnomer because we shouldn't just think of it as second chances, because sometimes people need third, fourth, fifth, sixth chances. So we're in the process of figuring out a new name for that. But that work provides free legal representation to people coming home from prison who have criminal records and are shut out of opportunities to work or get housing or get education that they need. And that work is really important also because we live in communities around the country that say, if you've got a criminal record, we're going to shut you out of a whole lot of things. I mean, we've got over 1,000 laws on the books in the state of Ohio that say you can't work in a certain industry or field or can't get a professional license if you've got a criminal record. And that's insane. So that is part of what this system of mass incarceration is shutting people out of opportunities. And guess what happens when you shut people out of opportunities? You create and sustain the very dynamics that lead people no other option but to be involved in law-breaking activity, even though they don't want to do that anymore. So that's another area of our work. And then the third is the most recent. We started Beyond Guilt in 2019 because we want to free individuals who are overpunished. And we're leaning in, by the way, not to representing people who've committed low-level nonviolent crimes. Yeah, those folks shouldn't be in prison either, but at least there is the sentiment more widely held in the community that we shouldn't let people fester in prisons if they've been convicted of low-level nonviolent crimes. Beyond Guilt represents people who've been convicted of serious crimes like murder, and they've been in for decades, and they are not the same person that they were who committed the murder. And so we proudly represent people who have committed really serious crimes, and yet they are human beings who are being thrown away. And Beyond Guilt is not just about getting individuals out, but it's about building a movement to relook at sentencing for people who commit serious crimes, because we over-incarcerate in this country. And it's not just because people get convicted of drug crimes and are serving time in prison. It's because we over-incarcerate for people who've committed serious crimes like murders, sexual offenses, robberies, very serious crimes. So that is the work that we do at OJPC. And how does this relate to fatherhood? You know, it's funny that you asked that question, John, because I was just recounting to our daughter Allison at her graduation weekend, and I talked about, I reminded her about the tears I shed when we were dropping her at college, and it actually, the tears came in a Target parking lot. I had taken Allison by myself right before she went off to college to Target to do some last minute shopping. And I just could not hold back the tears as I got into the parking lot. And I said to Allison, and I don't know why I was apologizing. And this is one of those things sometimes men are taught we can't have emotions. I said, Allison, I'm so sorry. I'm just sobbing. And she patted me on the back and said, it's going to be okay, Dad. And when I talked to her last week, I said, you know, I cried those tears because my work had taken me, or I let it take me away from my family. When she was a little girl, I didn't make it home for dinner every night, because this work at OJPC, trying to free people, trying to make sure people are treated like human beings, it can be all encompassing in some ways. And I don't think of it as work. It's a calling. It's a mission. I love what I do, and I love my family too. And I wasn't always home, and I regretted it. And what she said to me was, you are also my role model. And, you know, when she talks now about going to law school and being a public defender, I realized that even though I wasn't home for dinner every night, and I left a lot to my wife, Verna Williams, who is an accomplished professional in her own right, which wasn't fair to her to put the parenting on her. At least that wasn't in vain, because Allison was able to see me being passionate about criminal legal system reform work, to the point that she wants to be a public defender. So I guess what I'm saying is, I'm an imperfect father, but nonetheless, I love my daughter, I love my wife, I love my family. And I think that my work has had an impact on the child that Verna and I have raised.
I really appreciate that answer. And I often think, I mean, your daughter is amazing. She is an amazing human being. She's compassionate. She's committed to social justice. There's no doubt in my mind the work that you spent your life doing helped shape her. I think of that with my own daughter. And I often think that the work I do is part of living the values that I teach, and it's an important part of who I am as a father. So I appreciate your answer, and I'm glad that Verna responded to you while you were in tears in the Target parking lot that way. That's a great story.
Yeah, it's this balance stuff's hard. People ask me all the time, my students say, how do you balance work and family? And I'm like, you need to tell me. I haven't figured that out.
You figured it out more than you know. You're doing it better than most.
Perhaps.
You have 1 minute remaining.
So Jerome, you're back with us. I know you had some thoughts about what David just said. Why don't you share those? And then I have a question for you.
Okay, I appreciate that. Again, you can see the fact of these that you pointed out about this interruption that happens, and it's like I heard David pause when he heard it, right? And it's the same thing like when you're trying to break through with your child or have this connection, it separates you and you can't. Almost it breaks your thought up or separates you. But there's this heart issue that I wanted to just make sure I speak to because of the limitations, right? There's this constant choice or there's this thing that breaks the heart, breaks the connection of the relationship in these limitations. It's heart-wrenching where father trying to make these connections is trying to walk them through over a mountain. And I don't know if you can hear me better, but the same thing that David deals with just because of a job and being a father, incarceration, man or woman deals with as being a mother, and that's the regret versus the reward. Would she smile at me for everything I've done, or am I doing too much that is causing a pain that I will regret? Is trying to be the best that I can be for your child. And I know there's no perfect dad. I know there's no perfect child. But when there's a heart on the other side of this and they're depending on you and you're trying to get there, some things will pull you. There could be a decision made, try to navigate this and get this to a place. But I just know that there's a tearing of the heart in every way, even when you're trying to do the right thing or even when you've done the wrong thing in these relationships, that you want to be able to mend and make sure you're doing right. And if it's a struggle even being there, trying to get a career, it's even a greater struggle too, or even similar, being in a process where it's intentional to, I got to cut that short. You're only going to have a little bit of time here. And I know as a man trying to work a job and get a career and take care of his family, there's demands that happens, and I just feel his heart in that. It brings me to tears too. I'm thinking, how can I use in my limitations the things that I can use, and what type of resources can I use to be able to be present as much as I possibly can to help my children get to a place that they can be great and successful, and be the role model, even though it's hard to see me in places, but hoping that my actions are being seen, that I love them dearly, and I want the best for them. And so I just wanted to put that element in there as well. We share those same similarities in that. Is there regret and what is the reward? Or would my child still smile at me for what I'm trying to do, hurt by what I'm trying to do, or in what type of situation I'm in? So I just wanted to add that as well.
Jerome, that was so heartfelt. No, and I'm glad you added that. I think that was an incredibly important addition. I know it's got to be hard for you to share those things where you are, but I really do appreciate you sharing them with our audience. And I want to ask you along those lines, I want to ask you another question. And I want to say you sort of asked, am I being the role model I need to be for my kids? And I have to say, I don't know if you know this, but my wife, Illy, who's the co-founder of Gideon's Promise, she grew up with an incarcerated father. Her father was in Attica for 10 years. And I will tell you, she would visit him every week and said that he remained one of her greatest role models while she went to visit him. There's no doubt in my mind that the spirit that you just bring to life infects your children and your grandchildren, and you are a role model. And I know you can't do everything you'd like to do for them, but you do a lot. I know that. And along those lines, I wonder if you could just answer a couple of questions. One is, do you have a chance to talk to your children about the criminal justice system? And if so, how do you talk to them about the criminal justice system? And then I also wonder if you could maybe share any advice you might give other incarcerated parents who might be struggling with maintaining relationships with their own children while they're in prison. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on both of those things.
Yeah. My approach, it seems as my approach to this, it seems like their need is first for me, right? I do talk to my children. I have access to that within the time frame I'm given during the time that's carved out for us to use the phone, right? And so I do make use of that, and as well as letters and well as emails in any capacities I can in the time frame I'm given. Their need seems to be more principle than anything else, because every time I talk to them, I can sense and I can feel a sense of sadness from the separation, right? And so before I can even add or even sometimes get to another place of discussion about how I sit or what type of system I'm in, it seems like I'm dealing with the effects of it more than I can deal with anything else at the majority of the time. But what I have been dealing with when we do, or if we ever get to the topic of the justice system, or is because my children are grown up with me through this, and they're grown now, but what they were seeing was how, in their mind, they're saying, well, how can a man who has been doing this stuff or has these accomplishments inside still be inside, right? And then they're wondering now, since they're grown, as some of the people who are coming out of this system is saying how great your dad is. Your dad's a great man, and he's done this and he's doing this. And so it confuses them when it comes to the system, and saying, well, if he's doing all that, why is he still in there? Because their communication or their perception is, if institutions are created to rehabilitate people and to help them change, then why are they still in there when they have changed and have transformation? And so this becomes the topic, and then now it becomes this thing of, what type of system is this then? Does it really care? Being responsible for your actions is one thing, but keeping a person oppressed is a whole nother conversation. And so now it becomes, this is a oppressed system, and this system don't seem like it cares about the needs of anybody else other than the punishment of what is demanding. And so, there has to be a perspective bigger than looking at the system sometimes to help my children become focused on goals of success. Because if the focus is on the system, it seems to bring this darkness and this oppression and this depression on them, where I have to change the topic, and because it's that powerful, and I don't want that to continue to reside in them, and it almost just reverts back to me and says that's something I have to deal with and protect my children from that in as much as I possibly can. And the way that I can do that is only by changing their attention and putting it on something else, because they're still living it, and it's in their bones, and it's in their continents. It's in them, and the sadness is still in them. So that's kind of where I can navigate with that through there. But like I said, I'm a man of faith, so I have to turn that attention to something greater, and we need to look at the positives of what we are walking through. And this is a storm, this is a season. We will get through it, and we will overcome it. And I have to change the focus on that. And along with different advice that I share with men incarcerated is, I want them to understand that there's still an importance of an involved father, right? And so I need to, because what dominates the men in here is I'm away, I don't got no access to my children, and how can I have this great impact with them? So it's things that I share with them about being involved, because you can be present and not present. You can be there and not there, right? And so being in a sense away, we're gonna have to find a way to be involved. And there is great benefit of being involved. And so I share those things. I share those things, and I talk to them about, through these letters, through these phone calls, through any available outlet we have. We need to take advantage of it and making sure we speaking things into them. We're encouraging them, because it does help. It helps control the emotions of them. It helps their physical health. I believe it helps them do better in school. And this is my experience, because they love you. And when they love you, they will receive something from you. And if you're giving them something good, you're planting a good seed will grow. I believe that. And, that you can help them feel confident in this space. Help them not get caught up in drugs and other things, because statistics say, you don't have your father, it's more likely you would be locked up in some other things, right? And so to be contrary to that, it's important to be involved, and I explain that. And not only do I just give them advice, it's important for me to walk with men who are just experiencing this, or who has never been separated from their children and have to be separated in this time of incarceration. And so it becomes more than advice. I have to walk with them based on my experience, so we can help them get over the pain, because it's one of the greatest pains that any parent can have, is separation.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Is separation with their loved one. Children have it and parents have it, and it's very it can be very detrimental. And so I walk with them through it.
Jerome, it sounds like we're going to lose you again. When you come back, I'm going to ask David one more question. I'm going to ask David one more question, you one more question, and then a question for both of you, and that will wrap up our segment. But before we lose you, Jerome, could you just tell us the names of your children and grandchildren so we can sort of at least identify them as you speak about them?
My oldest daughter, her name is Sedation. My son, who's after her, is name is Jerome. Then my other two daughters, their name is Romisha and Shy Taylor. And then my...
Thank you for using GTL.
All right, Jerome, you back?
I'm back. Yep,
right.
I am
so
back.
I think we just lost you as you were about to introduce your 3 grandchildren.
My 3 grandchildren. So my oldest grandchild is I have two grandbaby boys and 1 granddaughter. And so it's Chance, it's Million, and it's Zuri.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
my grandbaby.
Yeah, great. All right, look, I hope we can get through these last 3 questions before we lose you again. David, let me just turn to you. David, I'd love to get your reaction to everything Jerome just said. You obviously have a lot of clients who are dealing with the same challenge of maintaining family connection while incarcerated. I wonder what thoughts you have about what Jerome said, and also what you as a lawyer, as an advocate, as a friend, I mean, you've written very powerfully about what it means to be a lawyer who's also a friend. How do you help support people in that situation who are feeling like those critical bonds are being broken?
Well, first of all, let me say this about what Rome just said. Every time, I always tell Rome's sister Serena this, every time I go see Rome, I come out feeling like I'm a better human being because of the time I spend with him. He is so wise and so thoughtful, and we have talked often about his children and his grandchildren, and I'm sure there are lots of great fathers out there, but Rome is, even though he doesn't have the same kind of access that those of us who are not in prison have with their children, he's a superb father and cares so much about his children and grandchildren, and does everything he can within his ability to be present. And being present, the one thing I take away from what Rome was just saying is being present doesn't require physical presence. Yes, it'd be great for Rome to have physical presence with his family, and that's what we're working for. But you can be emotionally present for someone even though you're far away, even though there's a prison wall or razor wire that separates you. And he's an exemplary dad in that way. So many of the men and women that I represent are really struggling to figure out how to do that parenting thing from behind bars. It is not easy. It is something that eats away at a lot of the people I represent because they're not in their children's lives the way they want to. And you mentioned, John, the importance of being a lawyer that just doesn't just see him or herself or their self as trying to solve a legal problem. Sometimes we have to figure out ways to just be present as friends to the people we represent. And I've had lots of those kinds of conversations where it's not about the case that I'm working on, but it's about just life. And, talking to an incarcerated person who is worried about their children and just being there for them. I can't necessarily solve that problem, but I can listen, and I can listen as a friend. And I think that's important in the work that I do, because often I'm not going to be able to accomplish what my client wants legally on the time frame that they want it, but my friendship is going to continue, and being in community with my client is going to continue with the people that I represent. And so that's just as important as what I bring to the table in terms of my skills as a lawyer, I think.
Yeah, thank you for that. That I think is such an important aspect of lawyering that is often overlooked. So I appreciate that. And Jerome, I want to come back to you and ask you about this. I mean, there is obviously a demonic narrative about people who are incarcerated. The world, if you don't know someone who is behind bars and don't see that they are a human being who is so much more than what they've been accused of or convicted of, it's easy to embrace this public narrative about people being bad people. And I wonder, you obviously know so many wonderful people who you've shared your life with for the last 27 years. And I wonder if there's something or some things you would like more people to understand about those who are incarcerated. What is it that you would like people to know about the people that you have stood shoulder to shoulder with for the last 27 years?
And just continue on to add on to what you just said about, just human beings, period. I would look at it as this, to bring back a perspective of saying, what were they before the 30 seconds or the choice, right? Before, what were they? Were they valuable? Were they your father? Were they your brother? Were they all of that? Because everybody can be one decision away from a choice, right? And so if all who they were before the choice just dissipates or just goes away because of a choice for 30 seconds of your life, not excusing anything, right? But that made them just become nothing, no value of anything anymore. There's a lot about who we are as a people, because you can find yourself in any situation, at any moment in life, in any time. There's such great value in here because human beings is here. They have been created with greatness in them. But if the choice and then the structure of institution can paint a narrative that says they're not worthy, they're not valuable, they have no more to offer this society, this humanity. I just would challenge people of that, because if you look at yourself in the mirror, the same gifts and the same talents and abilities that's in you is in other people. And a lot of those people are here. It's not, obviously the prison industry is an intentional industry. It's a business. It has an agenda and it supports our economy in a major way. We have allowed these structures to take talents and say we want to use them for this reason. Mass production of product at not even minimum wage. It's okay. So if I'm not valuable there, but I'm valuable here, it should raise a question about the structures we sit people in and we push them to and we just write them off to as if they're not. But these are our brothers, these are our sisters, our mothers, our sons, our grandchildren that's in these places, and they're human beings. So I hope, that, perspective can say, man, let me check my heart, let me inventory my heart, because these individuals that's here, not excusing nothing at any point, was you looked at them before they were valuable. They had potential and opportunity, and it's the same. People don't lose their value when they're here. It's just so much here. There's so much talent here. There's so much purpose here and answers here for world problems, right? But if nobody values it, then it can never grow our community. It can never grow our society, our nation, in any capacity. These brothers and these sisters have the answer to a lot of things, a lot of healing to a lot of pain. And I believe it could be utilized in a great way, because when a person is be able to line themselves up from the choices and the bad decisions, they're more effective going forward in life than most people would think. And sometimes I would say, like, these narratives that get painted on pictures on some of these TV shows about who incarcerated, a lot of them, it's like that's really intentional, because you would never see the real fruit and the real treasures that's in here, because the narrative is pushed with those images, those people who seem like they just trying to navigate the system to get over. It's so much more inside the wall that doesn't be or is not seen and never put on the camera. That's doing great work with men and changing people's lives, or doing great work with women and changing people's lives for the greater. And these people are going forward and being successful and being like real world changers. And so, I would just draw that attention back to those places. And then here's the other part, because I've seen this thing with Van Jones and his redemption thing, and some of the content that he's shown, a lot of that lives in here too. He's shown some accurate pictures of people who have done work, who have done transformation, who have shown to help heal broken situations, and that's powerful. And so to keep those things separated or grow distance between that, our world would never be. It would never be what we want it to really be, and where it can be, because we don't use all our pieces. We throw them away. They're not valuable. And so I hope people can see the value in it. Connect and open up more to that. So I would say that aspects, and there's a lot more, but just paint that picture.
Rome, I've got to tell you, man, you have so much knowledge to share with the world. I look forward to the day that you're home and you can do that without these restrictions. I'm grateful that you've just spent this time with us, sharing a snippet of all that you have to offer with folks that are listening. Thank you for that. And I want to wrap up with one last question that I'm going to ask both of you. And that is, on the topic of prisons, mass incarceration, our approach to the criminal legal system, those are really difficult conversations. They're adult topics. And I think oftentimes parents, fathers and mothers, right? Parents struggle to have these conversations with their kids. Sometimes they don't even know where to begin. Many parents themselves are ignorant to how the criminal legal system works. And the one thing I feel strongly about is that the failure to have these conversations ensures that you're part of the problem. It ensures that another generation grows up ignorant to one of the greatest civil rights crises facing our nation. So having these conversations is critical, but they're hard. And I wonder if each of you could maybe wrap up by sharing some thoughts, any advice you have to our listeners at home about how you might start to have this type of dialogue with your children. And David, let me start with you, and then Jerome, I'm going to give you the last word on this.
Yeah, John, I guess when you asked that question, I thought first, well, how do I answer that? Because I never thought about it intentionally. When I was, Verna and I were raising Allison, I just lived my life and lived my values. And, Allison went to the jail with me once, not to sit in on a conversation. I had to file something late at night, and I had her with me. And Verna actually got mad when she heard, "You took our daughter to the jail?" I was like, "No, I was trying to file something after hours." But Allison, shortly after that, she had to do this project where she had to draw a map of the city of Cincinnati. And she was the only kid who put a jail in it because she knew that there were people who were locked up there. And I guess if I'm being more intentional, if I had a do-over and I was thinking, well, how do I intentionally talk about the criminal legal system with our daughter rather than just sort of living the values and the work, I guess the most important thing I would say, and it echoes something that Jerome just said a moment ago, is we've got to talk about the humanity of people, of human beings, and including the humanity of people who are incarcerated. I will never forget when Allison was a teenager, I took her to an event that Tyra Patterson, who obviously John, she's part of the Gideon's family. She's a woman that I worked along with my colleagues at OJPC to free. And Tyra put on a program called Time Saved, Time Served. And it told the story of incarcerated women. And Allison was in tears when video got piped in of a woman named Kim Jordan, who I represent. And Kim talked about how painful it is to be written off by other people. Kim has been serving a life sentence since she was 19 for a murder that she was part of. And to just see Kim on video talking about how she was so much more than the crime that she was serving time for is part of the reason why Allison wants to be a public defender to this day. So I think it's really critical to stress the humanity of people and always use that language. And if that's one thing that I would want every parent to do to counteract this narrative of the demonic person who needs to be locked away forever because if they get out, they're going to harm the community, I would say humanity, humanity, humanity. We've got to preach that.
Amen. Amen. Rome, last thoughts of the podcast to you on the same question. Or anything else you want to share.
Yes. I would say that, to have this talk about mass incarceration, it varies with me because one, I have to see if I'm talking to a child who has a parent incarcerated, or it's just a child or someone's child, or who just we want to have another conversation with. So on top of all the conversations we have with our children, or we have to have with our children just living in America, I'm gonna add this extra conversation or this about mass incarceration and the effects it has on humans and families and in our life and how it's a part of this economy and the United States of America. I have to navigate through that gingerly, to say, because there's so many different phases of, and just me, like just seeing, there's toddler phase, there's the preschooler phase, there's the grade school child, there's the teenager, like these are stages of this development and this growth of how you have this conversation with our children about this topic. And so I have to use wisdom. I have to be mindful of how I deliver that and what I lay on them on top of everything else that is laid on them. Is it even necessary to lay it on them? Will be a part of the struggle as an adult, you know. But if that's the case, I believe it's important to not only to lean on my experience, but to lean on those that are before me, who have written, produced great material about this topic and have painted the pictures right about what people go and a certain type of people go through in America with this incarceration. Angela Davis has done a great job. Ava DuVernay has done a great job. Michelle Alexander has done a great job. I don't even know what else I can add to that.
Yeah.
On top of my experience, I don't, you know, like there's a part as parents, we have to protect, we have to provide, we have to promote, we have to be a priest, we have to be a prophet to our children, right? I have to protect them of something. I can't lay this type of weight on them. I just have to be able to, that's the things as parents we carry. There's things that we carry that they'll never know until they become, right? And so it's important how, you know, we navigate that, because there's so many levels of how we have to have that conversation on top of all the other conversations we have to have with them. And we want them to be light as possible, walking through and navigating through this earth, fulfilling their purposes and their destinies, trying to get to where they're going. So, you know, that's a broad topic, you know, but it's necessary in aspects. But, you know, I would start with showing some of those films and some of those materials that have been produced, and then we can have the conversation in that capacity, and I can answer, you know, certain things that might rise in their mind, and go from there, and hope, with the hope that I'm not discouraging them, I'm not putting another weight on them that's already on them. And it goes all the way back up to what I said, how I navigate, or what type of strength I need. Prayer. I need a wisdom to help deal with this, and how we interject this to generations, or how we allow this society and this world to continue to interject that into our families, into our children, world. And so I would say that, and I would just also say I appreciate you guys. I am grateful for, you know, what you offer in this whole process, even in your careers, because that is part of the parent that's incarcerated trying to get back and restore the relationship. It's the fight that most children might not see, but you're being part of that hope of getting there. However successful you are in the process, but the try is great, and it's encouraging for those of us who are incarcerated. So I thank you for that, and I just thank you for the efforts and the sacrifice that it takes to be able to try to help restore people back to a rightful position. That's never missed with us incarcerated. Please know that, because there is a group of people who take advantage of it, but there's a group of people who do not take advantage of it in the wrong way, but really want to fight for the people. And so that's well noted with those of us that's incarcerated. And so we appreciate the ones who really care and try with all they have and ability to help restore not just us to our families, but the humanity of a person, the value of a person, and be able to give them a opportunity, you know, in a different space to be great. And so I thank you for all of that, and I just thank you all for all that you're doing.
Wow. Well, what a way to wrap this up. And I got to say, I'm a Jewish man married to a Muslim woman. I'm not church going, but I'm grateful to you guys for taking me to church this Sunday morning. As I said, it is my birthday. This has been a wonderful gift. I mean, David, I always look forward to spending time with you. You've been an inspiration and a support to me for years and years. And Rome, I've been so looking forward to this moment to meet you. And man, I am just inspired by you. I cannot wait to connect with you when you are back home and we can sit down live. I'm sorry Illy couldn't join us. She got Mother's Day. I got Father's Day, but you guys really made this Parents' Day and People Day. So thank you for that. Illy has an Illyism. She says, in true form or fashion. I never knew what that meant, but I'm going to say it in true form or fashion. This is John rapping, missing Ilham Askia, wrapping it up.